Winnie Madikizela was a South African social worker and activist. She was the second wife of Nelson Mandela, from whom she separated in 1992 after her questionable behaviour and unrestrained militancy. Winnie was born into the Xhosa royal family on September 26, 1936 in Bizana, Pondoland district, Transkei in South Africa. Winnie's Xhosa name was Nomzamo, and she was the fifth of 9 children. Her parents, Columbus and Gertrude, were both teachers. While Columbus was a history teacher and headmaster, Gertrude was a domestic science teacher. Winnie went on to become the head girl at a high school in Bizana. When Winnie left school, she went to Johannesburg to study social work at the Jan Hofmeyr School of Social Work. She earned a degree in social work in 1956 and decades later earned a bachelor's degree in international relations from the University of Witwatersrand. She held a number of jobs in various parts of what was then the Bastustan of Transkei, with her first job being a social worker at Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto. Winnie met a lawyer and anti-apartheid activist, Nelson Mandela, in 1957 when he was still married to his first wife, Evelyn Mays. Winnie was 22 years old and standing at the bus stop in Soweto when Mandela first saw her and liked her. He secured a lunch date with her the following week. The couple got married in 1958 and had 2 daughters. Her husband, Mandela, was arrested and jailed in 1963 and was not released until 1990. The couple separated in 1992. They finalized the divorce in March 1996 with an unspecified out-of-court settlement. During the divorce hearing, Nelson Mandela rejected Winnie's assertion that arbitration could salvage the marriage and cited her infidelity as the cause of the divorce. Her attempt to obtain a settlement up to $5 million, half of what she claimed to be her ex-husband's worth, was dismissed when she failed to appear in court for a settlement hearing. Due to her political activities, Winnie emerged as a leading opponent of apartheid during the later part of her husband's imprisonment, and she was regularly detained by the National Party government. She was subjected to house arrest, kept under surveillance, imprisoned and banished to the remote town of Brandfort. Her longest jailing was for 491 days as noted in her account. 491 days, prisoner number 1323/69, which began on 12 May 1969 at Pretoria Central Prison, where she spent months in solitary confinement and was tortured and beaten. By her own account, her experience in prison hardened her. From 1977 to 1985, she was banished to the town of Brandfort in the Orange Free State and confined to the area. It was at this time that she became well known in the Western world. She organized a crèche with a non-governmental organization, Operation Hunger, and a clinic in Brandfort with Dr. Abubakar Asfat, her personal physician. While in exile in Brandfort, she and those who attempted to assist her were harassed by the apartheid police. Beaten by the apartheid police, she developed an addiction to painkillers and alcohol, and as a result of a back injury caused by the assault. During a speech in Mosonville on 13 April 1986, Winnie endorsed the practice of burning people alive using rubber tires filled with petrol, which was also known as necklacing, by saying, "With our boxes of matches and our necklace, we shall liberate this country." Further tarnishing her reputation were accusations by her bodyguard, Jerry Musivuzi Richardson, and others at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. She was said to have ordered kidnapping and the murder during the second half of the 1980s. Winnie returned to Soweto from Brandfort in the late 1985 in defiance of a banning order. During her banishment, the United Democratic Front and Congress of South African Trade Unions had formed a mass movement against apartheid. The new organizations relied more heavily on collective decision-making structures rather than on individual charisma. She took a more materialistic approach, eschewing the approach of the newer bodies, and began dressing in military garb and surrounding herself with bodyguards known as Mandela United Football Club. Living in Winnie's home, the purported soccer team began hearing family disputes and delivering judgments and sentences, and eventually became associated with kidnapping, torture, and murder. She was implicated in at least 15 deaths during this time. In 1988, Winnie's home was burned by high school students in Soweto, in retaliation to the actions of the Mandela United Football Club. By 1989, after appeals from local residents and after the Sepai kidnapping, the UDF disowned her from violating human rights in the name of the struggle against apartheid. The ANC, in exile, issued a statement criticizing her judgment after she refused to heed instructions issued from the prison by Nelson Mandela to disassociate herself from the football club, and after attempts at mediation by an ANC crisis committee failed. In November 1988, 21-year-old Lolo Sono and his 19-year-old friend Siboniso Shabalala disappeared in Soweto. Sono's father said he saw his son in a combi with Winnie, and that his son had been badly beaten. Sono's mother claimed that Winnie had labeled her son a spy and had said she was taking him away. Sono and Shabalala's body were exhumed from paupers' graves in Soweto Avalon Cemetery in 2013 by the National Prosecuting Authority Missing People's Tax Team, having been stabbed soon after their abductions. On 29 December 1988, Jerry Richardson, who was the coach of the Mandela United Football Club, abducted 14-year-old James Sepai and 3 other youths from the home of Methodist minister Paul Verrin, with Richardson claiming that Winnie had the youths taken to her home because she had baselessly suspected that the minister was sexually abusing them. The 4 were beaten to get them to admit to having had sex with the minister. Negotiations that lasted 10 days by senior ANC and community leaders to get the kidnapped boys released by Winnie failed. Sepai was accused of being an informer, and his body was later found in a field with stab wounds to the throat on 6 January 1989. In 1991, Winnie was acquitted of all but the kidnapping of Sepai. A key witness, Katiza Sebakulu, who was going to testify that Winnie had killed Sepai, had been tortured and kidnapped to Zambia by her supporters prior to the trial. To prevent him from testifying against her, and due to his absence, a 6-year jail sentence was reduced to a fine on appeal. In 1992, she was accused of ordering the mother of Abubakar Asfat, a family friend and prominent Soweto doctor. Asfat's mother testified that she paid the equivalent of $8,000 and supplied the firearm used in the killing, which took place on 27 January 1989. Winnie remained extremely popular amongst many African National Congress supporters. In December 1993 and April 1997, she was elected president of the ANC Women's League, although she withdrew her candidacy for ANC deputy president at the Movement Mafikeng conference in December 1997. During the 1990s, she associated with the Israeli mafia operating in South Africa, which was involved in extorting the local Jewish community and other criminal activity. In 2002, Winnie was found guilty by a parliamentary ethics committee of failing to disclose donations and financial interest. In 2003, Winnie offered to act as a human shield prior to the 2003 invasions of Iraq. Also in 2003, she helped diffuse a hostage situation at Wits University, where a student who was in arrears with fees took a staff member hostage at knife point. On 24 April 2003, Winnie was convicted of 435 counts of fraud and 25 of the theft, but pleaded not guilty. The charge is related to money taken from the loan applicant's account for a funeral fund, but from which the applicant did not benefit. Winnie was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Shortly after the conviction, she resigned from all leadership positions in the ANC, including her parliamentary seat and the presidency of the ANC Women's League. When the ANC announced the election of its National Executive Committee on 21st December 2007, Winnie placed first with 2,845 votes. Winnie criticized the anti-immigrant violence in May to June 2008 that began in Johannesburg and spread throughout the country, and blamed the government's lack of suitable housing provision for the sentiments behind the riots. She offered her home as shelter for an immigrant family from the Democratic Republic of Congo. At the time of her death, Winnie was involved in a lawsuit claiming that she was entitled to Mandela's homestead in Kunu through customary law, despite her divorce from Nelson Mandela in 1996. Her case was dismissed by the Matata High Court in 2016, and she was reportedly preparing to appeal to the Constitutional Court at the time of her death, after failing at the Supreme Court of Appeal in January 2018. Winnie was a political patron of Malema, who was expelled from the ANC and later formed his own party, the Economic Freedom. She died at the Netcare Mill Park Hospital in Johannesburg on 2nd April 2018 at the age of 81. She suffered from diabetes and had recently undergone several major surgeries. Winnie was granted a special official funeral by the South African government. Her public funeral service was held at Orlando Stadium on 14th of April 2018.